So today I'm joined by Jamil Qureshi. He's a peak performance psychologist. 6 of his clients have gone on to become world #1 golfers, cricketers, footballers. We're going to be talking about the importance of staying connected and the importance of communicating effectively. We're going to be talking about the importance of managing your expectations and being realistic and being fair to yourself. We're going to talk about the importance of discipline whilst we go through this working from home part of the crisis, and touching on many other topics as well, like leadership and fairness and uncertainty and purpose. Jamil, thanks for coming on the show. It's great to see you.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Pleasure to be here.
So tell us what's happened to because I know you quite well, and I know that you fly all over the world. In fact, I met you getting on a plane in Dubai. I was coming back from
each other.
Well, you tried to cut in front of me. I was like, listen, mate, it's not easy, Jay. We're supposed to be in business class. But you'd just been paid a lot of money to go and speak in Dubai at something. I'd been at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. One of us was very hungover.
Yes, possibly to both of us. We'll see. I can't remember.
But what sort of companies do you work with?
A real mix, actually. Cross sectors, cross geographies, a number of teams and businesses. And it's all about improving performance through creating the right mindsets and attitudes.
It's a bit hard to be flying all over the world doing, speaking at seminars and events. And when you speak at a seminar event, you're normally speaking in front of several thousand people quite often, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm usually abroad twice a week. So in January, I looked at my diary. In January, February, and March, it was 2 trips to Dubai, 4 trips to China, 2 trips to America. It was the usual diary, to be honest. And then literally within a week, it all came out. So within a whole week, the whole diary was decimated. I thought, what am I going to do? So I can't see events taking place for another year because my usual engagement is one-to-many. So I'm usually standing talking to an audience, or I'm facilitating or doing workshops. So I thought I would take the year off. I would try and play guitar better. I'd read some books, spend some time with the family, and that would be my year. In fact, it seems busier than it usually is. I'm now supporting organisations, I guess, in a different way to try and cultivate success in a time of real disruption and change.
Right. So that's what we really want to talk about today, isn't it? Because the economy, everyone's families, everything's been tipped upside down. It's quite chaotic. But what sort of things are your clients asking you to help with at the moment, and why?
I think there's probably 2 things, actually. One is leadership in a new context. So people are leading now remotely. They are working from home, and they're working with other people who are working from home. So I think that teams are geographically displaced, working remotely. So how do we lead in a new context? And what's the leadership style and tone, which is needed to drive performance and optimize potential in a time of such disruption? And the other is actually welfare and support. So I'm actually working with a lot of organizations at the moment just simply to support their team as they go through the many different moods that they will be going through as time progresses, as we find ourselves in the current climate.
And what kinds of challenges are these firms coming to you with?
It's all sorts, really, but it's mainly based around the changing attitudes of people in the workforce. People, I think, had at first found it quite interesting to work from home. It was a novelty. I think very quickly that seems to have gone away, and there's a level of demotivation at the moment I'm finding in some organisations and some teams. As people realise that working from home probably isn't as much fun as they thought it would be. So I guess the challenge for all leaders at the moment is how to keep our teams motivated, how to keep them engaged, how to keep them passionate and on purpose, at making sure they're achieving what they should be achieving. And I think that one of the interesting challenges too is dealing with uncertainty. So we're dealing in very difficult times, lots of unpredictability, volatility and uncertainty externally, in regard to markets, in regard to communities and society, but also lots of internal change too. And people going through a particular way of finding a way of working, an operational way, a logistical way of making sure their teams engage and connect in a purposeful manner.
So how hands-on are you getting with this? Are you giving them practical advice or theoretical advice or both?
Yeah, well, I'm usually standing at the front talking, but this is different. I don't necessarily believe that people need presentations at the moment. I think that people need to be engaged with on a personal level and understand some of the specific challenges that leaders are facing. So when I'm working with a leadership population, that leadership population might be 80 senior leaders in a company. I'm trying to provide 2 or 3 sessions a week. Those 2 or 3 sessions might be the same session. So the one I've done today for a pharmaceutical company was on productivity versus activity. How do we understand the difference between the two? But that session I put on 3 times in the week, and then the 80 leaders can dial into any one that they want. So depending upon their availability. Although it's the same session, I sometimes get some of the same leaders dialing into all 3 because they've got different colleagues on it. So therefore all sessions are different. So I try and keep it fluid, try and keep it dynamic, try and keep it energetic, try and make sure 45-minute sessions are usually fine. It's estimated that after spending 1 hour at our screen, we can lose up to 20% of our concentration. There's a lot of people at the moment spend a lot more time at their screen than that. So I try to keep the sessions short and practical, and it really relies upon debate and discussion more so than me presenting. I always believe that the answers lie within the team.
Yeah.
I always think that people know what it is that allows them to be better.
Yeah.
It's almost a matter of trying to create some time and space to allow people to have the answers reveal themselves to them.
Yeah. I went through a similar exercise a couple of days ago. Someone was asking me the right questions and getting the right answers out of me, and it helped me just map out how I should spend each day. So it's got some exercise in there, some rest in there, and actually it's based on what you told me. If I had 4 hours a week to run my business, how would I spend those hours? And I did this. So
okay.
It works out exactly. It works out at the bottom. Like I'm spending 40% of my time on my priority. Nothing else exists. And I put an hour in for lunch so I can hang out with the kids whilst we're all here together. And I found it very helpful. But that's one of your preferred. That's one of the questions you ask, isn't it? If you want to.
Yeah, I think. Do you know what? I think that, and it's a really good example of an exercise which simplifies. At the moment, the world is very complicated. So the more that we can simplify things, the better. Work is being in the work environment is a great equalizer. So what happens is that most people, if they're working in an office with others, would have the same sort of desk, they would have the same sort of phone, the same sort of computer, they work roughly the same hours. It's a great equalizer. But now people are working from home. We are so unequal in the way in which we work. Some people are single parents dealing with children plus trying to work. Some people are in a house of multi-occupation with other people who are trying to work. Some people, may have elderly relatives living a couple of hours away.
Yeah.
I spoke to someone the other day, spent 3 hours in Sainsbury's. Half their day was gone, totally stressed out by trying to be productive when they had simple activities to complete upon in the morning. So I think one of the lessons as well for leaders at the moment is to realise that how we manage and lead in the office needs to be quite different for when we're managing and leading teams remotely in a time of crisis. So I guess that level of empathy and understanding, a level of perspective in regard to what we can expect of ourselves and each other is really important at the moment. It seems to be very unequal in the way in which people are organising themselves and being able to.
Are you finding that some people are just making the same mistakes and have the same lessons to learn, and you're able to accelerate that learning process?
Yes, there's a few things that seem to be common traits in regard to sort of bad practice, I guess, as well as good practice. One of the obvious ones is that regularity of contact. I think people are finding it really hard to get the balance. So as a manager leading a team, there's a really big difference between checking up and checking in. And I think that sometimes when we are being seen to be checking up, we can lose trust. And trust is an incredibly important element at the moment. We are seeking to trust our leaders in government. We're trusting the leaders of big businesses at the moment and authorities, public authorities. We're trying to trust people we work with. And so therefore, we need to get the regularity of contact right to make sure that we're perceived in the right way. I think perspective is important. I think lots of people are anxious, probably there's more people more stressed than they realise at the moment. And I think perspective is important. Make sure that we as leaders and as colleagues are helping each other gain a perspective on the current situation. And I think that leaders could do well to make sure that they are contextualising things in a way for people which takes some of the stress out of the current situation. Something else that I'm seeing is that many organisations are being motivated by what they wish to avoid. I sometimes feel that we still need to be motivated by what we're seeking to achieve. This is not necessarily a time for people to look for recovery. It's a time for people to look for reinvention. And I think that many business models, be that property, be it financial models, be it pharmaceutical industries, will be challenged in a new way. And I think for us to reimagine a future which doesn't allow us to go back to the normal, I always call this at the moment a new now, not a new normal.
Yeah.
Because I hope we don't go back to the normal. I hope that we go back to something which is better than the position that allowed us to get into this state in the first place. So I do believe that it's an opportunity for organisations and leadership teams to reimagine and reinvent their organisations and a way in which they interact with customer and colleagues to form and forge something which will be bigger and better than what we could have achieved without this crisis.
So imagine if we split this audience into two separate parts. There's going to be lots of people who have teams that they run, whether they own the business or not, and there's going to be lots of people who are managed by someone. What would your advice be to the people, first of all, who are managed by someone and are finding that the manager's breathing down their neck?
So now is the time for strong leadership. So we require it of all the leaders, be that on a macro level, we're talking governments, but also on a minor level of people who manage and lead teams at the moment. But I think it's also a time for strong self-leadership. So it's a time that we need to take responsibility for how we feel, respect our own time and our discipline, make sure that we are being realistic with what we can achieve. Part of the pressures and stresses that people are feeling at the moment is that they're trying to achieve as much as they could when they were in the office. So it is a particularly difficult situation for many people, and I think that we need to be more forgiving of ourselves and set new, more realistic expectations of what we think that we can achieve in a day. And we need to telegraph and signpost that. Things are not the same as they were. So in regard to managing upwards, I think it's very important to make sure that we are realistic with what we believe we can achieve, and to make sure that we're being disciplined with where we're spending our time and how we are spending our time.
And what about for the people who are trying to manage teams and the team is now remote? What advice would you have for them?
One of the biggest things at the moment, I think, and if you get a chance for anyone who's listening and watching out there, is have a look at equity theory. And equity theory is all about fairness. And I think that it's a really big thing for a manager or leader at the moment. And what equity theory is about is to make sure that although people's situations are different, we are treating them fairly. So if someone is working under a particular circumstance, they may need to be managed, led, motivated, rewarded in a different way to someone who is working under a different situation to them, a different circumstance to them. So I think at the moment people are after fairness from the people who lead and manage them as one of the qualities. And I think that if we can come to terms with the fact that people are working in unequal situations at the moment, very different situations to how we manage and lead them in the office usually, but ensure a level of fairness in the way in which we interact and connect, I think it's a big feather in the cap for a manager or a leader at the moment.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of put you on the spot now, Jamil. If there were 3 things you think people should be doing right now during lockdown, working remotely, whether they're a member of the team or the person who's managing the team, what would those 3 things be?
Tricky one. There's probably more than 3. But
you're only allowed 3.
There's 3 off the top of my head. I got a friend of mine who puts on his shoes before he walks into his office. And so when he leaves his office, he takes off his shoes and then walks around the rest of the house in his socks. But it helps him create a sense of discipline. And I think discipline is incredibly important at the moment. It would be very easy to work all hours. And we do receive emails at 10, 11 o'clock at night. And that's not because people are being thoughtless. It's because they've had a busy day looking after the kids. It's the only time they get to work. And so therefore, we can be a slave to other people's chaotic agendas. At the moment, we are part of a chaotic ecosystem. So it's very hard for us to find discipline when our children, partners, colleagues, customers, suppliers may not necessarily be finding any discipline themselves. So therefore, I would say is to commit to discipline. When you're at work, be at work. When you're at home, be at home, and find a way of having a demarcation, a respect and discipline for your time and others.
Like a lock on the door.
That works. And the second one I would say is just relax about productivity. Some of the most productive people I know in the office space have been speaking to me about how they're just not motivated at the moment. Really flat, find it really difficult. I totally get that. And we need to be more forgiving with ourselves. There's something called Janusian thinking. It's a bit of a management philosophy. It's Janusian thinking based upon the Roman god Janus, who could hold two opposing thoughts, two contradictory thoughts, but believe them both to be true. And the two which are probably most sensible at the moment, I believe, is infinite patience, immediate results. The more we can relax, the more that we will be productive. I think we force ourselves into getting a lot done. We berate ourselves when we don't get it done. We spend our time thinking about what we should have done, what we could have had, where we could be. I think now is the time to relax about performance and almost allow the best routine and best way of working to reveal itself to us. The other Janusian thought. Sorry, Matt.
I was just going to totally agree with what you're saying there. Like the discipline of you're either working or you're not working, and you're spending time with the family. And if you try to do both, you won't do either properly. And,
exactly right. Exactly right.
And expectations as well. I've been telling my team, like, let's not aim for 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 with anything at the moment, because it's going to take a long time and a lot of effort. If it's 8 out of 10, bang, it's done, and we move on to the next thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And that's part of the other Janusian thought I was going to share with you, which is the fact that, we need to lose control to gain control. We need to give up control to gain control.
I lose control all the time, so we are sorted.
Many golfers, actually, it's a good golfing tip, is that you almost need to give up control to gain control.
Do you mean like go to Vegas and crash a car?
Yeah, that sort of thing isn't that helps no one's performance. It's really about the fact that we try too hard to find things which work for us. When really, if we relax into performing better, we'll just commit to a better mindset. So discipline is important. Relaxation about performance is important. Be more elastic with the way in which we view what we can achieve. And the third bit is connectivity. We are a social species, so no matter how people seem to like remote working to start with, it's amazing how quickly people don't like it. We like to have a coffee with someone, and we like to have a chat. We need to bump into people in corridors. So I think that we need to stay connected. Let's not just have our Zoom meets, Microsoft Teams meets, and WebEx about work. Let's make sure that we're talking to people about sport. Let's make sure that we are indulging in ways of using WhatsApp or whatever it might be at a house party. These various apps and applications and platforms which allow us to share and connect in a human way.
But also in the right measure, right? I unsubscribed from a load of WhatsApp recently because it was just like overwhelming. It was just far too much.
And the good news, the reason why it's overwhelming is because there's so much of it, which means that we can be choosy, and that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think the key is to find something which allows us to stay connected, whatever that may be. And but it's a matter of just making sure that we're not just putting our heads down and trying to pedal fast, because we're now working from home. And to be fair, for many of us, this is not working remotely. This is trying to get some stuff done whilst at home. And there's a big difference between the two.
Right.
If we choose to work remotely, and our contractors or agents or consultants or whoever who make that choice, their customers and colleagues may well be in an office. But because the world has changed, we're now people who are just trying to get some stuff done whilst we're in a completely new and different environment.
Yeah, but I know you're not a marriage guidance counsellor, but also like being connected properly at home. We've got a great game that we play. I mention it all the time. It's called Sequence. It's a board game with cards. And if we didn't have that in the evening, I don't know what else we would do to switch off, but we'd need to find something. You've got to find somewhere switching off at home and doing something that connects you properly at home, because there must be a lot of people climbing the walls at the moment.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Yes, yeah, your wife must be one of them. And so I think that we need to try and connect with each other in different ways. And ultimately, this is a real opportunity. We've been given a huge opportunity, a new opportunity to reinvent the world.
Yeah.
So I think that COVID-19 is just the hors d'oeuvre. I think the problems that we are experiencing at the moment will be nothing compared to some of the things that we will experience if we don't get a handle on climate change, for example. So therefore, when it comes to reinvention, it's not just some of the mechanics of society, not just some of the systems and some of the assumptions that we need to challenge in regard to big business. Just how we spend our family time is important. And it gives us a chance to reevaluate that, understand what's important, understand the opportunity that we've been given to create something which is bigger and better than what we would have created on our own from our comfort zone.
There is so much opportunity in all this disruption. My heart goes out to all the people who are really in a tight spot right now. I'm not thriving in this, but I've tried to find the opportunity in it. Yeah. I try to find ways in which I can help people. But I also said this to someone today. I said, this virus is forcing us to make difficult decisions that we knew we had to make, and they're for the better. Some of these decisions, obviously not all of them, but there are some difficult decisions that this virus is forcing us to make that, with hindsight, we'll look back on and say that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
Do you know, I was on a phone call this morning with someone from Guy's and St Thomas's Hospital, and they said that they moved an ICU unit from one floor to another floor, and that usually takes 9 to 12 months, and they managed to do it within the week. So I think that many organisations will be, and many teams and many individuals will be doing things that we never thought were possible. At the moment, communities outperform bureaucracies and hierarchies when it comes to maximising human talent. And we're seeing that all the time at the moment. Communities being mobilised around a worthy cause and achieving something spectacular. So I actually think that we'll come to understand and harness the power that's within our culture, within our communities, societies, within our team members. I always say that war makes strange bedfellows. And, we're seeing this at the moment. We're seeing GSK partner with Sanofi, a competitor, sharing IP to come up with new vaccines and treatments. We're seeing Virgin give aircraft to the NHS to collect PPE from China. They're doing shuttle runs of PPE. It wasn't so long ago that Richard Branson and Virgin were being pilloried for suing the NHS. So I think that, we'll see strange connections and alliances that we haven't seen before. We'll see people achieve things that they never thought were possible. We'll be asked to be agile and open-minded in a way that we haven't been before. And I think that all of these can only put us into good stead for when we reach something which allows us a level of sanity as we move forwards as humankind.
But you can only pull that shit off if you're concentrating on the solution and making a beeline for the way forwards rather than focusing on all the disaster and the distractions.
Yeah, it's one of the things which, I talk to leaders about at the moment is that you have to deal with business as usual. I get that. It is about now. However, there is something useful in regard to engaging and motivating people and getting them behind what could be. So it's not just about what we seek to do, it's about what we seek to create from this, which is most important. Yeah. And there is that level of optimism and open-mindedness as we talk about what we can create from this, rather than what we're simply seeking to do to allow us to survive in this particular moment.
Yeah. You got to be so careful what you say right now, because I know that there are people who are losing loved ones and what have you, but it reminds me of a personal tragedy I experienced in 2001. I actually got stabbed in the face by a guy in a bar when I was like 20 years ago. But my neighbor, when she saw me with my face all stitched and everything, she said, sometimes these things happen for a reason. This could be a blessing in disguise. And I remember thinking she was insane, but she was actually right, and it put me on a better path. And when I look back on that now, but you know, with the deepest of sympathy for anyone who's lost a loved one or something like that, that's a different kettle of fish, and that's tragedy. But for everybody else who's just being forced to take a look at their business and how they run it, or their lives and how they live it, change is good sometimes.
Yes, it is. Many people have been forced in this particular situation. We're talking about business, but people have been forced into this situation. And I think that, there'll be two types of company, in the future. That's brave or dead. And I think that, the courageous leadership has been forced upon many people, and I can only think that's a good thing, because, once we start to tackle things bravely, we can create new perspectives and therefore new possibilities.
Yeah. All right, well, look, that's all we've got time for, unfortunately. And I just want to say thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming on the show. Been a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you, Jamil.
Stay safe. Nice to see you. Speak to you soon.